Hello, everyone, and welcome to another GHAA demo. We have been doing virtual demos. Okay, GHAA is the Greater Haverhill Arts Association, and I am Joan Turner, treasurer slash podcaster, video person. Okay, so we're really excited to bring you this month's artist, and her name is Emily Passman. And I want to tell you that Emily is a painter of oils and acrylics. She's known for her very expressive, loose style and without losing any sense of realism. In her work, she describes the beauty she finds in the ordinary and in the everyday. She works from observation, both in the studio and plein air, and describes her work as a reaction to the subject, as opposed to just a rendering. In addition to teaching oil and acrylic techniques, she encourages and teaches students to sketch. She says daily sketching is a great way to heighten one's ability to see, and I totally agree, and important to incorporate into one's painting process or to capture in a sketchbook from nature. She is a member of the National Association of Women Artists, and her work is in galleries in New England and private collections internationally. After earning both a fine arts degree and a master's degree in education, she had a successful career as an educator and graphic designer. She teaches privately in her barn studio and at various educational venues near Boston. Okay? You can follow Emily on Instagram at Emily Passman. You can send her an email at emilypassman5856 at gmail.com. And I encourage you to sign up and receive class and workshop information right on her website. Okay, her website is www.emilypassman.com. Okay, Emily, P as in Peter, A S S, M as in man, A N, Emily Passman, all one word, no spaces. Okay, so without further ado, I am going to hand it over to Miss Emily Passman. So, hello, Emily. We are
Hi.
so happy to have you here today. And
Thank you
I
for
hear
inviting
you
me.
have some really cool stuff for us.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. I love doing demos. I love teaching. I love narrating my process, and this is a great way for me to do that. And
Yeah.
so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a little slideshow so I can describe what I'm doing. I personally work in oils and watercolors and acrylics, but today I'm working in acrylic. And I basically like anything that makes a mark. I work in ink. I do a lot of sketchbooking. I take artists out in the summertime doing plein air sketching, watercoloring,
I
nature
love it.
watercolor and sketching. And so I love it all. And teaching on Zoom has been my silver lining throughout this pandemic.
I'll
Because
tell you, this pandemic has really pushed us all into, for me anyway, unfamiliar territory. We're beginning to learn more about how to do things this way,
absolutely
virtually.
new
Yeah,
directions for sure. Yes. And
absolutely.
so, and I've been learning a little bit about video editing, a little bit about using, iMovie to edit out the sneezes and all that. And so I'm getting,
iMovie, I have not heard of that. iMovie,
that's
is
the
that
one
an
that
app?
comes with the Mac. That comes with the Mac.
Oh, at the Mac. Oh, okay. All
Yeah, I'm
right.
on the Mac.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I'm going to start with a little slideshow. And I just want to say that I'm describing today about a technique that I use that I call painting from the inside out. And the reason that I call it that is that I'm starting by creating my marketing, and I think the slideshow will explain what I'm trying to do to explain this
Nice.
to you. There are lots of different ways of using acrylic. This is just one method of covering the space that becomes a painting.
Nice.
So I'm going to share my screen and start the slideshow.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to it.
So because this demonstration is about using photos to create paintings, this is a very sort of normal, kind of boring photograph of some butterfly weeds. I like to take photos that are not necessarily exciting because it's not about the subject matter for me, it's what I can do with the paint. And actually, if I start with a photo that's a little bit more mundane or ordinary, I find I get a better painting. This next one is the first thing I did. This is a 24 by 24 inch board. And I just started with getting the darks and the lights. Then I started drawing in. Is this large enough on the screen?
Yeah, that looks great.
Great. So I started pushing a little bit more of the lights, as you see here, and pushing some of the darks, and also adding some line work. Sometimes I add this line work with a thin layer of opaque acrylic, or sometimes I use charcoal, like in this case. Here I'll go back and forth so you can see the steps that it's taking.
Yeah.
So I'm adding in more darks and lights, really starting to pull it from the inside out. Now
I already have a Dumbola question. Now
Sure.
you're putting charcoal on there,
and I spray it. I spray.
oh, okay. So
Yeah,
you anticipate, you knew.
yeah,
All right.
I spray it. It fixes it. It won't smudge. And I just do a little spot sprays. I do a little
Yeah.
charcoal and I like that, just like that.
Got it.
And this is just looking more closely at some of the information that I'm getting. My goal is not to get rendered and tight, but it's to stay loose and stay with the feeling and the gesture of my subject instead of depicting it. And then here's my final.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the photograph, and you really, yeah, it's more of a feeling than it is. It's not just a replica of the photograph.
I am not copying the photo.
No, beautiful,
And
beautiful.
with this one, I am looking at a vase of flowers in front of a bookcase, and I'm getting the feeling of the light coming through. I'm not depicting every book. I'm not getting I ask myself, what is exciting to me about this? Light from the window, light on the surface of the windowsill, light on the stool, and the feeling of flowers against the dark bookcase. Because even though these books are primarily a lot of whites and lights, it's very dark compared to a lot of this light.
Sure. Nice.
Here I'm showing how I take the photograph and turn it upside down in order to find my masses. This is what I'm going to be doing a lot of today in my demonstration, is showing you how to use the photo, look at it upside down, and find these masses instead of looking at beginning of house, end of house, beginning of bush, end of bush. I'm massing in and finding my darks and lights. This is Mount Vernon Street in Gloucester. So here are two photographs up here that are not that interesting. This is the photograph that I used, even though the actual photo is not very good. It's showing you the darks and the lights. This is a very large canvas. This is 30 by 40.
Wow.
And let me just close this out. There we go. And so what I'm focusing on is the lights on the front planes of the building here and here. And then I'm looking at how the light hits this corner up here. And that's
nice.
Kind of where the focal point is, and then moving down through. The sense of there's a fence here, but it's all really in the dark. And I just want it to appear, but be all shadowed, as opposed to painting it white because it's a whitewashed fence.
You did a good job. That's excellent.
Thank you. And this is just a little video that shows about, so the first, and this is what I'm going to show you in my demo today, is I'm using a sponge. I'm going to use a brush today, but I'm using a sponge to find all of this mass of shape. I wanted it to have, because it's a shadow on a yellow house, I wanted it to have ochres and greens. So you'll just see, I just moved the camera around at this stage of before too much detail was in. Sometimes I take a photo like this and I wish that I had left it a little less rendered, but you know, we learn as we go.
Nice.
And I'm looking at that upside down.
I think that's a great idea. If you're right-handed, the left side of your brain is dominant. When you turn it upside down, you're engaging the other hemisphere a little bit more
And you're engaged.
fully.
That's right. And you're engaging
Absolutely.
eyes and the
Yeah,
eyes. So your brain turns off because, you know, we've all been around a while. So we know exactly what things look like. So instead of making them up, we turn it upside down. So we have to resort to our eyes again. And that's what
right.
it's all about.
Nice.
Okay. So this is a painting of Cambridge. And this one, I feel like I got a little bit too rendered with, but I should have stopped a little bit before, but one of the things I just want to bring attention to is this place right here, which is, let me just move this around. So here in the photo, we have some bricks. Well, without rendering brick, how do we get the feeling of the brick? Well, with my paint, I got lighter, darker, pinks, oranges, and then a few lines just to get the sense, the feeling of the brick. I teach a lot about building structures, and I really want to make clear that even though a lot of my painting starts out very loose, where I'm really just scrubbing in values, darks and lights, I am also really paying attention to the structure because the perspective is very, very important. Like how much of a sliver of the roof I see here.
Yeah.
The front of the plane of the building here, etc. And also connecting all these darks, like the trees here, the wood of the building here, this whole shadow coming right down into the foreground. That's just one massive shape that comes there. And this is the stage where I find that in addition to finding the correct perspective.
Nice.
And then I also do the same kind of thing when I look at objects, and I call these found still lifes. I find that for myself, if I set up a still life, it's always a big bore. But if I look around my studio and I find a little collection of something that's all a mess, it's like, there it is. That's
There
what
it is. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And
Wow.
these are one painting at different stages. This was when I first thought I was finished. And this is the photo from which I painted. Let me bring that to the front. Hold on one second. That's the paint. That's the photo I used. I have to go back to format here to bring to front. Arrange, bring to front. So this is the photo. And in this lower left-hand corner, I had some problems with what happened right here. And I ended up going back to the drawing board and adding that in. But I did want to show the process that I used to create this. So there's the photo.
Yeah.
And I started with an overall, this is a 48 inch by 48 inch canvas. And I just started with starting to get the drawing and then starting to mass in where I saw darks and lights.
Wow.
Using some white line to tell myself about some of the drawing when I needed to get clearer about architecture. And that was the end until I went back to the drawing board and added this house.
And added that house. Now I have to ask you, that is it looks like such a detailed picture. How long does it take you to do something like that? Or does every picture, for me, every picture kind of has its own life, so it takes whatever. But how long did it take you to do that?
Well, I mean, I was working on other things at the same time. I was doing a lot of teaching at the same time. Probably if I just sat down, this would take maybe a week.
Okay.
Many
That's pretty
hours a day, because there's a lot of, I mean, you call it detailed, but if you really look at some of the, it's not, it may be readable, very readable, but it's
Yeah.
not very, no, sorry, it's nameable. It's not nameable, but readable in some places. And I'm going to just make that point where I'm going to crop down to a little area right here of light. And then I'm going to blow it up so you can see that, yes, it looks very readable, but then there are certain shapes in it that aren't necessarily, not necessarily nameable.
No,
Like,
when I see them like that, I have no, if it was just that, I would have no idea what it was.
right, but it all reads as part of a
Yeah,
landscape. So
absolutely.
that's sort of my goal with my work, is to get the sense of something, and the whole sensibility of the canvas is such that my viewer can really feel what's going on, but not everything is like a storybook, like clear here, clear here, clear here. There's some ambiguity, just like how we glance at life.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome.
And this is just an example of using a really bad photo. This is just a photo of a 5x7, very shiny, very overexposed photo of somebody's backyard in Marblehead. And this painting, I started without making big masses here. I started with calligraphic lines. And here's my finished product. This is also a 48 inch by 48 inch. Again, it has a lot of feeling of using brush marks to get the sense of things, but not necessarily to render them. Like
Wow.
grass in the lower right is a lot of scratching on, scratching off, pulling things around, dripping. And so the feeling that I want in my work is to be able to make something read, but not have it be so rendered.
Nice.
So what I'd like to do now is describe to you what I'm going to do in that same vein, where I'm going to take a photograph. I'm going to share my camera here on my board. And what I'm showing you is that I have a photograph that I took, and it's a photograph that's taken in Gloucester. And those rooftops were Gloucester. I'm in love with Gloucester and Rockport.
I don't blame you.
I haven't moved there yet. And then what I like to do is find where the interest is. It's not necessarily that I take a photograph and decide, well, this is here, so I better paint it, or this is here, I better paint it. I get to decide because I'm the painter. So
Right.
I decided that it's going to be a rectangle. And the first thing that I did, sort of like with Julia Child, where she's going to tell you what she did, but she already did it ahead of time.
I love it.
So I cheated a little bit, and I took my photo in black and white, and I turned it upside down.
Mhm.
I'm just going to tape this a little bit right here to describe what I did. So in order to find my masses, I took that upside down. I took a sheet of newsprint. I turned it upside down. Well, it was just a piece of newsprint. And what I did was I just moved around with a pencil to find my darks and lights,
Mhm.
so that I could let go of any kind of notion about, well, this is a car and it looks like this, and this must look like this because it's a chimney and this is a roof. It helped me to let go of naming anything.
Sure.
Then I am going to, today for you, I'm going to turn my drawing that I found my division of space, and I'm going to turn it upside down before you even get attached to what is what. And I'm going to take my photo, turn the photo upside down also.
So you do a lot of prep work before you actually, I keep yapping at my students like a broken record. You got to practice, you got to set it up, sketching. When you're painting, you're sketching with your paintbrush. I'm like a broken record. They go, yeah, we know.
No, there is a lot of work that goes into
Yeah. So
it.
this is good that they're seeing someone else do everything I keep yapping at them about. This is good.
And I'm also going to do something that may be surprising. And then, can you see all of this okay now?
I can see it. This is good.
Great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pretty large brush, and this way it keeps me honest, because this is a 1-inch hardware store brush.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be following my darks and lights that I see here and bring them here.
Okay, so you're still focusing on darks and lights. Like you said, at this point, you're not looking for readable even, you're just doing darks and lights.
I am, no, but I am now starting to find correlation of
Okay,
value to the color. So I will find, this has a lot of ochre in it here, but it's
yeah.
really dark. Even though the sun is hitting this roof,
Mm-hmm.
really pretty dark compared to the sky, compared to
Yeah.
the front of this house. So I'm moving around and I'm going to find comparable values. Okay.
Yep.
So the colors that I have on my palette are 2 blues, 2 reds, 2 yellows, a warm and a cool of each,
Mm-hmm.
white, and
So what kind of what kind of reds and blues? Are those like phalos, cerulean? What kind of?
my 2 blues are cobalt and ultramarine.
Okay.
My 2 reds are a quinacridone magenta, which is basically alizarin crimson. It's a blue
Okay.
side of red. And then the yellow side of red, I used cadmium red light.
Oh, okay.
And then I used a primary yellow and a
Mhm.
yellow ochre.
Cool.
Or maybe it was a raw sienna. Was it? Yep, it was raw sienna. Yellow, primary yellow and
Raw
raw
sienna.
sienna.
Yeah.
And titanium white. And then for a very, very dark brown to mix
Mhm.
with my blue to get black, because I don't use black from the tube,
Ah.
I have a raw umber.
Okay, so raw umber in place of black all the time?
Sorry, it's burnt umber. This one's
Burnt
burnt.
umber. Okay.
No, I just don't use black from the tube unless it's sometimes later on when I'm
Okay.
at the very end of my painting, when I really want to accentuate a deep, 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 dark black place. But mostly I don't.
Okay, and these are acrylics. Do you have a preferred brand that
Yeah,
you
I use
like?
mostly golden. And so I use
Oh, good.
these. I use the big tubs.
Yeah.
And so I use my palette knife to pull out the paint, put it on
Uh-huh.
my palette. And this way, if it's the end of the day and I haven't used some, I will
Mhm.
just scoop it right back in, because you
Oh, okay. Good.
certainly can't do that with tubes.
Yeah, right, right.
It's
You're
a lot
right. I
of
didn't
money.
even think of that.
Right.
Good.
It's a big dump at the art supply store,
Yeah.
but in the long run, you save the money. So I'm going to start with some sort of dark here. Oh,
Mhm.
this is the area that I think I should make this very clear, that I've already marked out here where I am. So but that's the location of it. And I'm just going to start moving around. And let me just get this a little bit.
I was gonna say, try moving it back. Right there, right there. That's perfect.
Okay,
Ta-da!
excellent. Now I'm going to take the big brush, keep myself honest here. And this might seem surprising. Oh, and by the way, I'm dipping a little bit into a matte medium.
Ah, okay.
So I just dipped into a little of the red on the yellow side, which was the cadmium red, a
Uh-huh.
little bit of the brown, a little bit of the blue, and I'm just going to start in. So here I am right here. I'm over here now, kind of comes up there. And I tell myself, the looser I am about this stage,
Mm-hmm.
truly, honestly, the better off my painting will be. And now I'm over here. And now I'm here. Here, and I can always remember it's acrylic. So anytime I want to come back in and put other colors in,
Mm-hmm.
I can do that. Anytime I want to go in and make something lighter. And I'm not going to keep it upside down the whole time. I will go back. This goes here.
So the upside down is just to get the lights and darks in without your brain interfering, it sounds like.
That's right. And then once everything is covered with
Mhm.
basic values, I'm going
Yeah.
to I'm going to turn it over and continue.
Cool. So now did you switch to blues over there? Is that what I'm seeing?
I just dipped into a different place on my palette.
Okay.
I'm not that careful. I'm going to go a little bit into the yellow ochre now too, just to make my point. It just doesn't matter.
Okay.
Believe it or not, it just doesn't matter what I put down at this stage. Then in here, there's a little, but I'm not just going in and filling in the lines that I made. I'm actually looking back at my photo for every single brush mark.
I see that. That's excellent.
Yeah, I don't make it up, because if I make it up, now I just went in for a teeny bit of the white just to make things a little bit more neutral gray-ish, but still very, very dark. Where am I? Here. And this is actually a truck. You'll see once I turn it right side up. And that truck goes right into the darkness of the side of that house. And here the darkness continues. It gets a little bit bluer, but it's same value, different color.
Mm-hmm.
There, and then it goes there. That.
So what are you painting on? That doesn't look like a canvas.
Oh, no, thank you. Yes, I forgot to mention, I'm painting on 140-pound watercolor paper.
Really? You're putting acrylic on 105? Do you ever use like the 300-pound arches? I've done acrylics on that, but I've never done acrylics on 140.
Yeah, this is arches on 140. And this front of this is like another car there. I know this seems really so crazy right now, but it will make sense, I promise.
I'm looking at that and I'm going, this is going to end up being a beauteous picture. But right now, you're right. It looks like gobs of paint.
It does, it does.
I'm like so excited. I can't wait.
Something right there. And I get lost because I don't know what's what right now. But
Yeah, I bet.
I know there's something a little greenish there, so I'll go and put that there. And there's a window there. Down there's some other things. Now I'm going to go in and I want to say something more about this. This roof right there. It's very, very light, but still way, way darker than other things, but it's pretty light. It's pretty light.
And this is all done with your 1-inch brush.
Yeah, all with the 1-inch brush. Whew. Excuse me, my dog wants to come in.
Come on in, puppy.
Come on in, baby girl. Before we end the video, I'll have to turn the camera to her.
I was just going to say, you have to let us see her at some point. Absolutely.
So I'm looking now at this part, which is that roof there.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in for my more yellow ochre area. That's this. So it's not all willy-nilly. There is a rhyme and a reason to what I'm
Sure,
doing.
sure. I'm teasing, I'm teasing. Like I say, right now, it really, there doesn't look like a whole bunch of primary, so I'm just really excited to see the next step. This is awesome.
Yeah, so it's in about 10 minutes or so, I'll be turning it upright. This is the pole. And by the way, because I get to do whatever I want with this,
Uh-huh,
I decided that I want this pole, which happened to come right in the middle of the front of this house, right to the point. I
uh-huh.
didn't want that, so I moved it over. So
Good
it's okay,
girl. Good girl. Yeah, I
because
agree.
I get to do that, right?
That's right. You are the creator.
Yeah, and so here's some of these shadows there. And I don't rinse off very, very often in the water, just if I'm going to make a total change. Like, so right now I'm going to work on the sky. And I'm never, ever just trying to match a color of a sky. I am trying to match the value, but not,
Right.
and
Not the
I'm
color.
pretty careful at this stage. I'm looking at the direction of these things now, pretty much. I know that this comes down like that. I know that this is a roof that comes across there, so it's there to there. And I find that the looser I am at this stage, and I know that I'll put that pole back in there, but I'm not going to paint around that pole.
Yeah,
It'll come later.
yeah.
Come back, add something else. So the colors in the sky will already start to, let me see, this is the pole and this is that, yeah. The colors in the sky will already start to feel natural rather than, I have to just not lose track of where I am. It may look like it doesn't matter, but it matters a lot. I'm thinking about how I want this color, the blue, to kind of move through.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the chimney's going to go, but I don't need to put that in yet. There is.
Okay, and you're using medium as you go along here. Yes?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I'm
good,
dipping
good.
a little bit in the medium.
Yeah.
And I got a little bit of yellow on my brush, but that doesn't matter. Everything, I use the word remnants a lot in my teaching. In other words, you got a little bit of yellow in there, that'll be a remnant later on of something else.
There you go.
And now I'm going to take a slightly smaller brush. This is a, what is this called? This is a bright, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, number 8 bright.
Number 8 bright.
And I'm just going to go in and start looking at some of these. This here. This here. Just so I really establish what is the most light.
And this is just white paint.
This is just, yeah, white paint, but it's not solidly white.
Okay. So I have a question. Now, you're using watercolor paper. Do you ever just leave the white of the paper? I know when you're using a canvas, you don't use any leave any raw canvas.
No,
So do you ever leave any of the paper?
I do not. Not with acrylic.
Good. Oh, I mean, that's good to know.
So I'm going to turn it right side up now, and continue working.
Cool.
And so, don't get scared for me.
Not at all. Not at all. I am totally confident.
Yeah. So now I realize I lost my roof there. So there's what I have to do is get this on here so I'm clear about where I am. So I have to take that. So hold on 1 second.
I was thinking that earlier. I'm thinking I would have to leave that on there or else I'd keep losing myself.
Well, yeah, to tell you the truth, in a lot of cases, I make lines all over this to tell myself where I'm.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, it's about there.
Now when this is finished, will you spray it? Will you put any kind of finish on it or you just leave it the way it is?
Just leave it the way it is, but I have tape around it, so I'll have a really nice border.
Water. Okay, so do you mat it and frame it or?
Well, you know what? The Three Stones Gallery in Concord, West Concord, Massachusetts has a lot of my pieces on paper. And I just use clearbags.com
Mhm.
and
Oh, okay.
I have backing, and
Mhm.
this way people can choose their own frames. And I like to paint on paper, and I could never afford to frame them all.
Okay, all right.
So
If
now
you were to frame it, would you put glass over it or do you treat it?
I would have to do that.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay,
And then
so,
I will go back in and I will use a straight edge where I need to.
all
Um,
right.
I'm going to tell myself pretty early on where that chimney's going, but that doesn't mean that I make more out of it than I need to. I'm just going
Mhm.
to take a little, just looking to see where it lands here,
Okay,
here. So I'm just going to give a little bit of information about that.
cool.
And now I'm going to go in and let's see. I'm going to go in with a slightly more with drawing in terms of tightening things up so I know what's going on. For example, right here, there is this.
Okay, so we can't actually see what you're doing at this point, but,
I put
oh,
this
there you go. Yeah,
and
yeah,
this
yeah.
and this little bit of a,
Okay,
and
some shadow.
that shadow that shadow corresponds almost beautiful. Well, it corresponds to this shadow here
Hmm.
that comes down. So this shadow from here doesn't know to stop. It actually continues right here. You see that?
Yeah, nice,
And then
nice.
it comes down there, and then this whole section that I made really dark is now going into its corresponding color there. And then there's a little bit of a little overhang there from, collecting something from somewhere else.
Hmm.
Um, there is more of a white here. I started to make the window, but I'm just going to take the window out for now. I'll put it back in later. Here's where that roof is. And then there, under that, there is this. So that whole area is just starting to feel more three-dimensional
Yeah, it really is.
architectural. And then even though you may not have known, this there's a car here with the darkness of this area comes through the car window right there.
Oh,
See that? That's the car
yeah,
door.
that's
And
cool.
yeah, and then there's a let me just make this, while this is on my brush, I'll just use a little bit right here to show that overhang.
Okay, nice.
Now this is actually a truck here. How can we make that feel more like a truck? Well, now I'm looking here, comes down here like this, and then like this. And everything that I think I know about a truck, I have to kind of let go of.
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
to let go of naming it. It's not important for me to name it, but I'm trying to get a very, very, very dark color right now. So I'm going in
Mhm.
for the black and the blue, my darkest color that I have. And I'm seeing that this comes down like this. This comes down like this. I keep on referring back to here.
Sure, sure.
Here's the front of the hood, which is actually much higher than you'd think. And it comes right down into this, which is, as we know, the wheels. And then this one, the wheel is about right here. And how do we get the feeling that that's in front of all the other stuff? I'm going in for some gray now. So
Mhm.
this, and then right, it stops at the wheel and it continues right there, stops at this wheel, continues right there.
Well, I'll be dipped. That looks like a truck.
Sure, it
I
is.
love it. Like, okay, that dark blue just became a truck. I love it.
And now I'm going back and I'm looking at the structure of this house. Now this, I had made it very, very brown just because that's what I had dipped into. And that's fine because then some of the brown can be used for, let's say, these windows. So now I will go back, look again. And now the top, this side of this house becomes the top of the truck, or becomes the jump between the truck
The
and
truck and the building. Yeah,
yeah,
cool.
and comes like there. And then there's this little rooftop here that kind of cuts into, I'm looking at the roof line here. It's about down here. And then there's a roof from this house over here. I'm going to go back in and find a pretty dark color to make this there. There's something there. And then I'll put the windows back in. I won't forget about them.
So
That,
now you've used medium in there. Does the paint dry as fast? Is it, I mean, you're actually layering color over it. It's obviously not mixing together. So is that first layer dry already?
yep, some of it really is.
Huh.
That's the joy of acrylic, and that's the thing
Yeah.
about acrylic too.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't want to, I like to build my painting all at one time. So I'm building it together. In other words, I don't want to get too
Caught
deep.
up in one area.
Yeah, that's right. Caught up in
Yeah.
this. I want to go at this level all the way through and
Mm-hmm.
then go back again. So there is a little bit of a space just outside of that roof that I did there, which is like this. And I always use a straight edge because this is architecture. If it's architecture, use it. There's a straight edge there. And then there's also another rooftop, another layer of something right there.
Mm-hmm.
That. And then it goes sort of around something. I don't know what this thing is. I don't care what it is, but I do care that it ends where something else ends, which tells the story of the front of this. And then there is another like layer of a rooftop there, which is very related to the darkness there. And this here starts to tell the story of where this is. And then there's the front of this one.
Huh. Cool.
And now I'm going in to say where this one is. And we haven't really talked about this sidewalk. So there's the pole, which is going to come about there, and it's on the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is coming right toward us. So I'm going to bring that. I don't like to bring anything right down to the corner, but I'll bring it to about right there. And here's the top of the sidewalk, sort of like the almost like the horizon line there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, I'm going in for a little bit of red, a little bit of blue, a little bit of brown, just to get a beautiful gray, to get this feeling of that pole, I mean that wall. So that wall I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that, but it's about there. It's about like that. And I just want that feeling of three-dimensionality. And as I move through, I'll be able to go back and make more sense of this roof that's there. Bring that sky out. And then this, which comes straight. And then there is some, I don't know what it is, some poles or something there. There are some posts on that.
Yeah.
And now I want to just go in and talk about where this is, this pole. And this pole comes straight to the end of the side. I don't want it to go straight up, but I want it to go like this. And I think I'll have it look one color where it's in the light up there, because it really is in the light.
Mm-hmm.
And that will really, and I'll make it lighter up here.
So what are you putting on there? Is that white or is it blue? And what color are you putting on there to make it light?
Well, it's a little bit of light, it's a little bit of white, a little bit of raw sienna, a little bit of the yellow.
It looks great.
And notice how beautifully dark and how it gets thicker. It's dark and thicker at the bottom.
Yes.
That's pretty interesting, and it's kind of a way to kind of settle everything into the earth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go like this, move it out just a little bit to add some girth. Like that.
Nice.
Now that got very blue, but I could go in and make it a little bit brown here. So now it goes from brown to blue. And some of these shadows, as I move through, I'll make more sense of the shadows. So right now I'm grabbing a little bit of something I want to say something more about this horizontal nature of the road here. Because underneath, right where this car sits, it starts to feel horizontal, and it comes right underneath these wheels. And because the car is actually coming down the road.
Ah.
Goes there, and then here's this curve. But I'll worry about that later, or I won't worry about it. I don't worry about it. I won't worry about it. I'll just put it in. Now I really want to say something about these windows. Well, if I just go like that, it's enough. That's
yeah.
And down here is a window. I am very sure to put it in its correct height. I don't want it, I really want this to feel like that overhang. There's actually a roof there. So under the window comes this roof. And then a little bit further down, that's where the window is. So there's that. And within the dark here are some shutters, and I'm just going to make a little place for them now. Later on, I think I would bring the front of that building a little bit lighter.
Mm-hmm.
But the fun part comes in when I start bringing more color to areas that I've established already once with something. Like, for example, this rooftop here, it's in the sunlight.
Yeah.
There's no denying that is in the sunlight. And if I start making more sharp edge here with something, I wanted to do more ochre, adding a little ochre into that. Sharper line there, sharper line there. If I tell the story of this corner, it will tell the story of this.
Very nice.
And this one goes a little greener. So I'll just take whatever's on my brush, dip into the yellow now, just to bring it a little bit greener, because there's a really nice jump between what these two rooftops look like in the sun. And this one, and I'm always sure to wipe off the edge of my
Yeah,
rubble.
I know that one.
To make this really sharp edge here, because it is architecture, and so it's not that I want everything loosey-goosey. I want it to be sharp if it's sharp.
Mhm.
And I want to come in and make this sharp. And then I'm looking to see how this goes in and down and in, you know, these little, these are very important little corners.
Absolutely.
There's some beautiful, I mean, you know, for the purpose of a 1-hour demo, I'm going to push into things that I might not push into till way later.
Understood.
Yeah, for example, these windows here
Mhm.
are really very reflective of the light of the sky. So in order to make these windows, instead of going around and making any kind of outline of the window, I'm just going to go in. Actually, I'm talking about this one. Yes, I'm just going to go in and first I'm going to make a little dot where the top of them are, because they have to be in perspective. They are going
Mhm.
that way, and a little something there. Go back in, change my color up. Go back in, look again. This one comes a little bit like that. And the other one is a little bit darker on the bottom. Yeah, and then there's something there. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's this roof there. And that kind of relates, same roofer, same shingles. So I'm going to make that like that. And as soon as I start having these corresponding lights and darks,
Mhm.
the light starts to become realized. And this brush that I was just using is just a flat, it's a really small, I guess they call it
A small flat.
a small flat. I love this one.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And I'm going to put a teeny bit of the light for the truck there, just a tad. And I'm going to change it up on the other side, just so it's not twins. And then I don't even really, oh yeah, now I see what that is. Now I get what that is. So this is an overhang of that. This is part of that house. This is part of that. I don't want this to feel like part of the truck, and now it doesn't. But there is a mirror of the truck. And, you know, I mean, I don't have to get that detailed, and it's, you know, you have to be careful when you get too detailed. So now there's the mirror.
Uh-huh. Love it.
And I think at this point, just to establish correct values here and there, I think what I need to do is to go in and work in the foreground here.
Mhm.
Back to my really big brush. And because I don't want this to feel like the same color as this roof, nor do I want it to feel like the same color as the front of this, I want it to be its own colors. A lot of times roads have kind of a purplish tinge.
True.
So I'm just going to so I went into that quinacridone red, and I'm going in for my cobalt blue and a little bit of the brown, and we'll see what I come up with here. Cobalt, quinacridone red, and some of the brown. And yeah, I think that's better.
Nice.
And of course, when I get the line in there for the yellow road, which
Mhm.
it's going to be tempting to make it yellow, but the truth of the matter is, this yellow line in the shade is darker than this rooftop.
Ah,
You know, it's just looking there. Change it up a little bit. Looking again. Trying not to get in front of the camera here.
I know you are doing such a good job. I would be like totally forgetting. People would see the back of my head.
And I think just for fun, I will try to get some color that is the feeling of that yellow road, which to me, it's kind of like the very, very, very darkish gray ochre.
Mhm.
And let's see what direction it's really going. It's really going from about here to about here. And I'm not going to make it one solid line. I'm going to just like that. And the other one, it's got to be thinner up here and get a little bit thicker at the bottom because it's coming toward me. Something like that.
Cool.
And we can't deny that there are some light and shadow going across the road. So I'm going to go in for that same purple, but add some of that ochre into it. So there's something here that goes like this, and it goes like this, and it kind of jumps the curve and goes over. And it's just like a little bit of a dry brush I'm using, meaning that I have paint, but not a lot of brush, not a lot of paint.
Not a lot of paint.
Not a lot of paint on there. To get some more white out.
Nice.
So in the last couple of minutes, what I like to do at the very end, I mean, obviously I could spend, you know how it is, you could go on.
I do. You could go on and on and on, I'm sure. But I can't, this started out like blobs of paint and now it's a really 3D picture. It's beauteous.
Thank you. I'm just tightening architecturally what's going on here. I hope I'm not in the way here.
Nope, we can see. You're doing good.
Got a little messy in there. I can clean that up, no problem. Can always, that's the wonderful thing about acrylic too.
Yeah.
You can always come back in. Clean up, clean up.
Nice.
Well, just, you know, for a quick demo. And then what I love to do, of course, is take.
Peel that paint off of there, that tape.
Yeah. Just to see, well, where did I go in an hour?
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. There you go. That's a good shot. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That is awesome. And you did do it in an hour. That was great. So I have to ask, I did in the intro tell people how they could reach you, but
Oh.
how can tell them again, tell them your website and where they can get a
Okay.
hold of you.
So I'm on Instagram. I post on Instagram as much as I can. I'm learning how to be a social media person. I have a 21-year-old son who Well, he combination helps me and ignores me. But,
So you mean a normal person,
yeah,
normal son?
very normal. He's a
Very
senior,
normal.
and he's yeah, a little bit of an eye roll, but he also helps me out. And so I have Instagram, and my handle at Instagram is just Emily Passman. And then I also teach, I send out mailers about once a month about all the lists of classes that I'm teaching. Right now I'm teaching at Courier Museum of Art, Concord Art Association. And it's easy to teach at all these places on Zoom because I'm right here in my studio.
You have everything you need right here.
Everything's right here. And I teach at Lexington Arts and Crafts Society, Monroe Center for the Arts, Rockport Art Association. And so I send out those mailers. And if you want to be on the mailing list for my classes, just go to my website, emilypassman.com. And under classes, click on send me updates.
Nice.
I will
Very
send
nice.
out this list, and it was a pleasure to do this.
This was absolutely awesome. Now I have to ask you one more question. Is your
Sure.
puppy nearby?
Oh
We
my
want to see her.
Yes, of course she is. Her name is Eva.
Eva. One of my best girlfriend's names is Eva.
You see her there
I
on the
see
couch?
her. Look at her. She's so comfortable. Eva.
She is.
Hi, Eva. She's like, all right, who we got? What's going on here now, Mom? You can tell she's very comfortable and very happy right where she is.
Yeah, she's 10, so she's mellowed, let's say.
Mellowed. She's mellowed.
Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you so very much. And
Thank you. Thank
you're
you.
very welcome. And I'm just going to remind everyone that they can learn more about the Behavioral Art Association by just getting on our website, which is behavioralartsassociation.org. Okay, and we have lots of sponsors, and we're also have a Facebook presence and all that good stuff. So absolutely come and visit us. Go and visit Miss Emily, and we thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
You are so very welcome. Bye bye for
Bye-bye.
now.